Joe Budden wonders why Jess Hilarious hasn't returned back to the Breakfast Club.
Do we make anything of Jess Hilarious not being back on the Breakfast Club yet? Maybe in pre-K now. She still ain't come back.
You're just saying that because there's a poll going out there that they said they prefer the young lady that's on there now.
No, I've thought this for a while because I'm a fan of Jess Hilarious.
Me
and
too.
thought that she was such a great addition to that show. And then she left with the baby. And then they brought the new young lady in there who's doing great. So now it's the thing. But I've been one to ask, like, where is Jess Hilarious?
That's right, Sean. Episode 771 of the Joe Budden podcast. Joe Budden was thinking of where is Jess Hilarious ever since she stepped away from the show because of maternity leave. And a lot of folks are also noting that her replacement might be doing a much better job than she ever was. Now, in this episode, it starts off with Joe joking about how the cast is performing better without Melissa Ford, which is quite funny in itself. And then he presents to his cast members, hey, isn't it odd that Jess Hilarious hasn't returned back to the Breakfast Club? Yes, she had a baby, but she's still doing comedy shows. She's still doing other work, which would lead you to believe that she should be back on the show. And he would ask the other members of the show, hey, where's Jess Hilarious? And Mark Lamont would play it safe because he is obviously pandering to his connections on the Breakfast Club and makes the point that someone should never lose their job due to injury. And he even made an analogy about how in sports, that isn't how it should go, but the rest of the cast fights back by saying that's complete nonsense, noting the cases of Drew Bledsoe and Tony Romo, who lost their spots to Tom Brady and Dak Prescott, respectively. Now, I think this is a big deal for Joe to highlight because it shows how big the rumors have gotten in the industry when the second biggest platform in the medium, the Joe Budden podcast, is discussing something that is on the tip of everyone's mind. And Ice would eventually note that Jess is really busy and, she just has a lot going on and that this might be some sort of rollout, with Joe chiming in and saying she might want to quit anyway. But let me know what you think, listeners. Do you think this is something of note? I think that at some point, Jess Hilarious will leave. I know a lot of people in the last video I made about Jess Hilarious and Lauren LaRosa, they were like, you can't fire someone on maternity leave. But I think that Jess Hilarious might be peeping the noise and might want to walk away anyway. Like, I don't know what's wrong with her just saying, hey, I was on the Breakfast Club. It was pretty cool. But at the end of the day, this may not be the best fit for me. And the Breakfast Club may not be where I want to spend so much time at. Once again, a morning show is a huge lift. And usually those who are successful in the mornings are dedicated radio personalities. And I don't know if Jess really wants to get up every day and then do comedy shows at night. It just seems like the two worst careers you can have. And usually those types of instances are short-lived. I mean, you look at all the people that used to be on the Howard Stern show who used to do comedy. Many of them burn out and don't end up back on the show because they want to focus on one thing or the other. But let me know what you believe. Do you feel like Joe Budden is asking all the right questions? I did find it odd. I'll be honest. I thought that Joe Budden not speaking about the Breakfast Club as much as he used to was a sign that him and Charlamagne are actually back cool. Because I remember when the Joe Budden podcast used to talk about the Breakfast Club all the time. Like, it was essentially anything that happened with the Breakfast Club, they would discuss, from DJ Envy to Angela Yee and Charlamagne not getting along. Even last year, they were speaking a ton about DJ Envy's court cases, and there was a time when Joe Budden was trying to really go in on DJ Envy because he hated on him being number one on the Complex list, and he was targeting him. But then he started to get a little more quiet, and Charlamagne even started to compliment Joe Budden. And I was like, oh, is it possible that Charlamagne and Joe Budden are in a better position as far as their friendship or relationship or being associates? Because they were always frenemies and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to see Joe actually talk about the biggest platform in hip-hop media Yes, that's right. It still is the biggest platform in hip hop media, but I think the Joe Budden podcast is right there, or at least a little bit below it, which is pretty amazing because it's independent and it's not tied to iHeart. Many people often say, "Oh man, the Breakfast Club is so lit," and I think it is lit. I do think it's very, very big, but it still remains attached to the infrastructure of iHeart. And that's one of the biggest reasons for its success. It's still been a great show, but I've just always noted that when talking about radio, it's when you're tied to a network with vast resources and also the ability to get you guests, it's a little bit easier to stay afloat. Whereas Joe, largely independent for the most part, I do think now there's a lot of tentacles from corporate companies that hold the show up. I mean, they got a Prize Picks ad, and they also have a lot of connects to the labels. I think Atlantic has tentacles to the Joe Budden podcast, and Joe is also placating to other people. You got Jay-Z, you got Revolt, all of these things going on. So time will tell. But yep, that was Joe talking about where is Jess Hilarious, when is she coming back to the show. And I don't even know if Jess Hilarious is tweeting or Instagramming about the show. I feel like people monitor her Instagram. If it doesn't say Breakfast Club co-host, if it doesn't have clips from the Breakfast Club on it, if she's not promoting it, then something's up. Not saying that means she's gone, but it just means that she's not really, trying to broadcast that as one of her main jobs. Because all her other stuff, like comedy, it gets highlighted. But, like, right now, she has something she's promoting online. Jess Hilarious, November 1st to 2nd. She's going to be appearing on the Laugh Out Loud comedy club scene. And it's going to be in San Antonio. So a lot of people are, in my comment section, they're saying things like, hey, Danny, she's on maternity leave, but she's doing a whole other job that is just as time consuming as doing a radio show. So if I'm watching this situation, seems out of place to me. She's literally going on the road. She's not on the Breakfast Club. I'm looking at her Instagram. I don't see anything about the Breakfast Club at all. I'm scrolling for a minute, y'all. I'm scrolling for a minute, and the last post she makes about the Breakfast Club is July 18th, when she's talking about Corey Hardrick or something like that. And the voices are getting louder, y'all. The voices are getting louder. Lauren LaRosa is staying on her grind. She's continuously trying to take that spot. Lauren is trying to get Jess out of there. And not in no disrespectful way, but just by working hard. I see her on Twitter making threads about the Tory Lanez case. There's just an element to her of being both the breaking news person and being good on camera. I don't think Jess Hilarious can measure up to, or even wants to measure up to. But only time will tell. Alright, y'all, that's my video for today. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.